Hey everybody, it's Reverend Will, Senior Minister for Fulton First Christian Church, coming to you live for this week's midweek devotion. This week we're going to sort of piggyback a little bit on last week. You see, I love the Gospel of Mark. It's one of my favorites, maybe the favorite. I love his fervent energy, which always moves us forward. His favorite word seems to be immediately, because every story happens immediately. He has no time for sweet baby, 8-pound, 9-ounce baby Jesus, preferring to kick us off right when the action begins, which is actually when John the Baptist appears on the scene. And Mark's reporting of Jesus' teachings are limited compared to the other Gospels, but it packs a wallop when it comes. But I also appreciate the care Mark took in crafting the gospel. He knew what he was doing to drive us forward and then to go back when we get to the end. And chapter 10 is a great case in point of this care. There are two stories I want to key in on that are linked. They happen one right after another. And we are supposed to see them as two sides of the same coin. The same, but different. And there is a progression. The second builds upon the first. The first one I did a devotion on last week. It's the story of James and John asking to sit at Jesus' right and left hand when he comes into his glory. We don't know why they make that request, though I offered an idea last week. But they are still confused about the way of Jesus. They want the benefits of being near someone important, like maybe some of that power would rub off on them. They don't realize that the people on Jesus' left and right when he comes in glory will be the two thieves crucified alongside him. That's where God's glory is most clearly seen on the cross. This past Sunday's story is about a healing. The last story before Jesus makes his way into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. It's the story of a man who was blind named Bartimaeus. Let's call him Bart. And he had a prime panhandling spot on the road in Jericho. Apparently, Jesus was a known commodity in this part of the world, because Bart cried out loudly, and then even louder when the people tried to shut him up, Jesus, Son of David, show me mercy. Have mercy on me. Now, Son of David, which Bart calls Jesus, was a title. It's not just a nice thing to say. It is a title of expectation. It was a title given to the Messiah, one on whom hopes and dreams were foisted. Calling Jesus this name, Son of David, shows that Bart has some deeper insight as to who Jesus is beyond the surface level. This is how deep Mark writes his story. A blind man, someone who can't see, is actually able to see Jesus for who he is. Bart's not just some down on his luck disabled guy. He is a man of deep faith that can see past the expectations. The disciples couldn't see what was coming, who Jesus was, and how his power didn't align with the world's conception of power. Even though they had been with him from the beginning, James and John couldn't see. And then there's Bart, who had only heard of Jesus, who couldn't travel because of his disability, who was sick and needed a doctor. See Mark chapter 2, verse 17. This man, Bart, sees Jesus as one who can heal, one who came for people like himself, one who could restore him. He had not always been blind. And so this is the important question these two stories bring us. Do we see Jesus for who he is, or do we see him for as we want him to be? Do we see Jesus as one who came to save the least, last, lost, and little? Or do we see him as our ticket to the top or top adjacent? Do we see Jesus as a savior who has come to defeat sin and death in all its effects? Or as a vending machine doling out our preferences? Do we have the eyes to see? I pray that you and I do. Thanks for joining me for this week's devotion. I hope you got something out of it, and maybe the prayer for giving us the eyes to see can be one that you pray today. I hope you will join us for worship on Sunday morning. We gather at 10:30, both in person here in Fulton and online. But if not, our benediction is the same as always. God be with you till we meet.